Hi everyone, this is a video which I've been very excited to do for a while. It's about a book by Dolores Cannon called The Three Waves of Volunteers and the New Earth. And I think this book can come in really handy at the moment to help to understand a perspective of what's happening in the world at the moment, and to also help explain why some of us have been feeling the way we have for a long time, possibly ever since we were born into this life. It's not meant to be taken with any kind of ego. It's the opposite, actually. It's just to try to help us, those of us who have maybe felt different and a sense of not belonging sometimes being here, to help to try to understand a theory of why that might be. Dolores Cannon, who was now sadly passed away, developed a very deep trance-like state of hypnosis, which she called QHHT, which is Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique, in order to take people back, like most hypnotherapies, for clients who are dealing with physical or emotional issues in this life, to take them back into previous lives to see if those lives could provide some explanation, and to try to get to the root of those problems in a past life to heal them in this life. And what she found during this these experiences was that when she was asking questions of the people about where they had been in their past lives, they weren't just going to past lives on this earth, but in on previous on different planets. And people started to say the same kinds of things about where they came from, about the way that Earth had been created, how humans came to be here on Earth, and many other things. So she wrote these down, and she's written many books, and the books are made up mostly of transcripts from her client therapies. So this particular book talks about the creation of Earth. So she talks about these councils that are governing the universes, and the role of these councils. This is not the same thing as what we would call God. God would be something higher above that. But these councils, the role of these councils is to seek out planets which would potentially be suitable for life. So they start off by sending single-celled organisms to this planet, and then if they survive, they would send various different plant life, and then eventually animal, and eventually human life. So the humans that are incarnated on this planet are souls who were originally not from Earth. We're all essentially aliens from somewhere else. And Earth is like a school. It's got a very different type of frequency here compared to some of the other planets, and because of that, it's an opportunity for those souls to learn. And in her book, she says, what better lesson to learn than to feel that you are alone. And this is what one of the things that we are here on Earth to try to move past, I suppose, because we're all born here with amnesia of our connection to Source. And apparently a lot of us are suffering from abandonment and rejection issues, which date back not just to our parents and ancestrally, but actually through the illusion of disconnection from Source that all of us experienced when we incarnated here. This made a lot of sense to me, actually, when I read this. And so Earth is about when we incarnate here, the fraction of us as a one unit fractured into lots of different pieces so that we're able to see ourselves through everybody that we meet. And for those of you who have looked into shadow work and perhaps the work of Byron Katie, and just the concept of mirrors and projection, this will make sense. So when there's an issue between the individual and someone else, it's a mirror reflected back to us of something that we are holding, perhaps a judgment within ourselves of something. This person is showing it to us. And so one of the aims is that we work through all those judgments that are being shown to us. And until we do that, we're going to have that same judgment reflected back to us again and again from different people until we've dealt with that root. In order to eliminate judgment. So this is the aim. So what happened is that we are being observed by these councils, and originally we as human beings were supposed to live relatively healthy lives for forever, but a meteorite hit, which I've heard this actually from different sources, and that this was apparently actually confirmed relatively recently by science, that a meteorite hit, and what happened was that this spread disease through our species. And this was a kind of turning point for human beings, and from then on our development of technology exceeded at a really great level our connection to our hearts and to source. So this escalated and peaked around 1945. So at the end of the Second World War, when we had the explosion of the first atomic bomb, these councils observed this, and they realized this this huge difference between the way that we have understood technology and the way we've understood ourselves, and a greater power. And they realized that we were going to destroy ourselves if they didn't take some kind of action. So they're not able to externally interfere, but they realized that they were able to internally help Earth. So what they did was they made a call out to the universes, and they asked for volunteers to save Earth. And I don't know if anybody's seen the film La Belle Verte, but this is really similar to what happens in this film. It's a French film, and it starts off on this kind of very utopian green planet, I think it's called, and they do a call out to Earth, and they ask for volunteers. Nobody wants to go to Earth because their energy is so dense, and eventually a lady gets kind of I think she volunteers, or she gets dragged into it somehow because nobody else wants to go, and she goes down to Earth, and she doesn't understand why there's so much pollution, why people aren't being polite to her, and yeah, the energy is very dense. So they did a call out and they asked for volunteers. So these volunteers came in 3 waves. The first wave were within the baby boomer generation. So not all of the souls in the baby boomer generation are obviously volunteers, because what happened was that the souls that were already on the earth at that time were stuck in what they would call a karmic cycle. So they needed new souls. So some of the souls within the baby boomer generation were volunteers. They were new souls. They had never incarnated on Earth before. They found it really, really difficult. So this was the kind of first hippie movement, which gathered some momentum and then dissipated eventually. And you know, some of those hippies went on to become really successful CEOs in big companies and all sorts of things, but some of them continued their work and stayed true to themselves, but a lot of them obviously grew up for a lot of their lives without the technology to be able to connect with people like them. So a lot of them committed suicide and led quite very difficult and miserable lives, which is really sad, because the nature of how these volunteers were spread is through a network. They weren't all in the same place, which would be easy in some ways, but at the same time, in order to be able to affect the consciousness of as many of the existing souls on Earth as possible, those volunteers needed to be networked around the world. So that was the first wave. They came obviously with their memories erased. One of their roles, one of their tasks was to remember where they're from and what their mission was. Before these souls are incarnated here on Earth, we essentially have made contracts with, regarding what we would like to learn during our time, because these volunteers come to help Earth but also to learn themselves. So they make contracts with other souls that are incarnating on Earth, other volunteers or other souls that are stuck in that karmic cycle in the 3D, which I'll get to later. So we make contracts with other people before we incarnate. This is what the book says. And so part of the mission is to remember why we're here and that we are on a mission. So the second wave is people more in kind of my generation, so 30s, 40s, and these are the second wavers. They are different to the first wavers because we found it slightly easier to connect with people. The path had already been paved to some extent by the first wavers, so it was slightly easy for us, but also not that easy, because for a lot of our lives we also didn't have even with social media, it started off not being so easy to connect with others. It's getting easier now, but it is still very difficult. And a lot of the second wavers, because they feel so sensitive to things, a lot of them want to they're quite hermit-like, and they want to stay inside and just kind of shut themselves off from the world because they feel so much and they don't always know how to control their emotions. It's something that we learn as we progress. And the thing is that if the aim of the first wavers was to start creating that path, the second wavers' aim is to get themselves into a good positive energy, get themselves healthy and happy, and to then just be, and just to spread and emanate that energy everywhere they go. Now I relate a lot to this, to being a second waver. It's so much easier for me to stay inside and just kind of shut myself off from the world, because I'm so sensitive to things, and yet I feel when I walk down the street, if I'm in a good mood, I really feel powerful that other people can pick up on that mood. And yet I feel also when I'm in a bad mood that other people will pick up on that. And so when I am not feeling great, I really don't want to put myself out there because I know that it's going to affect other people. So then we have the final wave, which is the third wave. These are children who are, well, they're now probably in their 20s, but they are also in their teens and being born now, from what I can see from the younger generation. These children have upgraded DNA already. They have special abilities. They might have memories and knowledge of certain things which they've never been told in this life. They've got a certain kind of sensitivity and connection already, and you can just see there's something special about them. And a lot of these children sadly are being misdiagnosed with ADD, ADHD. They're being medicated because these children's brains are working at a different rate and they need high stimulation, not medication. They don't need to be suppressed. They've got really special gifts that it is their duty and their contract to share with others. So a lot of these children are being born by second wave parents, or crystal parents, so that those parents can nurture that child to get the best out of them. So a lot of them are highly psychic, very intuitive. Their speech might be a bit delayed at first, but they are here to help heal the world, and they've got a very special healing energy about them. So in terms of the DNA upgrade that they already came in with, it's something that now the second wavers and the first wavers and the other souls that were already here are now being upgraded with. And the impact of this is that there is a lot of mystery illnesses and ailments which particularly Western modern day doctors cannot explain, and this book explains that a lot of them as being DNA upgrades. But these third wavers already have those upgrades. And the Schumann resonance on Earth, which is the Earth's heart rate, EMF heart rate, is now starting to increase. The higher harmonics of the resonance is now being visibly, scientifically observed as increasing. And this goes away to explain also some of the dis-ease on the planet, but also as further evidence of this shift in consciousness. So the new Earth is the shift from 3D to 5D. So the 3D world is the world that humans have been living in for a long time. It's the illusion of separation. It's about the things that are on a physical level, which we can feel, we can touch, on a very kind of practical, scientific, black and white level. It's about focus on the individual, survival of the fittest, disconnection. It's about the identification with the physical material world, with the body, with the various different identities that we have been given, or that we feel that we have chosen. It's about polarity. This is good, this is bad. It's about scarcity. There is not enough to go around. About fear, and there's a lot of fear going on at the moment. What else have I got here? The five senses only, limitation, difficulty managing and connecting with emotions, happy to exist at a kind of superficial level of knowledge and connection with the self. The concept that we are alone, that this is it after we die, and a disconnection from source. So 4D is the shift between 3D and 5D, and things are happening really quickly at the moment. We're kind of going, so people, or those of us, and there are people older than me who have been going through this for a much longer time, that have taken years and years and years to shift from the 3D into 5D, which is never just 3D, 4D, 5D. We go amongst and in between all of them all the time. But people that are waking up now, especially during this time, because the virus and everything else going on at the moment is actually having so many positive effects for shaking people up, and people have got a lot more time to research what's going on and to think a bit deeper about what's going on in life. So there's some real positives, and those people are waking up, and the shift that had previously maybe taken people years to do can now happen in a matter of months. And for me, this is a similar shift to the veganism movement, where before it was like people turned vegetarian maybe for years and years and years, got used to it, and then shifted into veganism. And people are now going from meat eating to veganism like that. And yeah, the same can be said for this spirituality shift that's happening now. So in the 4D, this is a gateway. We start to pay more attention to our thoughts and realize how powerful our thoughts and our prayers therefore can be, to manifest things, and also the effect of them on our health and well-being. There is still this duality, good and bad, but it's with a lot more compassion and empathy for those around us and for ourselves. There's more of an attention to the environment around us that we live in, to our lifestyles, to our diets, and this kind of sense that there's this deeper meaning to be had in life, and perhaps starting to try to find your passion and to use that in order to fund your life. And this is when the intuition, the sixth sense, starts to develop as well. Synchronicity is also being observed. So the 5D is a much more a society, but also on the individual level of a connectedness. There's a much stronger connection to a higher, any kind of higher power, a realization that we are one and that we are not alone. There's no duality here. Nothing is good or bad, it just is. There's a higher purpose for all, a huge level of compassion and connectedness for all humans, animals, plant life, galaxies, planets. Judgment doesn't really exist here, and it's not that we don't, it's not that there is no initial judgment. I'm not saying is a bad thing, but to bring the judgment onto a conscious level is what is experienced on the 5D. And there is no more scarcity. This is now a feeling of abundance. So abundance being there is more than enough for everybody in this moment. So why do we need a new earth? In the books, she says that what actually happens is that this shift looks like a cell splitting. So the old earth remains, and then there is a new earth creation. Why? Is because this is the only way to save earth. She says that we'd gone too far, and this is completely necessary in order to save our species. So she says that this happened on a collective mass scale with the Mayans, and she said that because they experienced that, they were able to predict when that might happen on an even bigger scale, and this is why their calendar ended in 2012. And so some people say that this shift started to happen on a big scale from 2012, and there was a miscalculation between the Gregorian and the Mayan calendar. So instead of it actually being on December the 21st, 2012, it actually happened on June 21st, 2020. So there is definitely something happening now, and I think many of us have been feeling it for at least the last few years, and it's really reaching some kind of head now in 2020. So in terms of when is the new earth going to be created, it's already in the process. And from my understanding, it's an individual process rather than a collective one. That's where it needs to start. And so some people are already living in the 5D and have been for a long time. And the rest of us are catching up now, and a lot of us are now shifting, like I said, back and forth, and we're being triggered a lot, especially now. But triggers are good because they allow us to reflect and go back within, and to again look at those judgments that we're holding. So it's happening now. But what Dolores Cannon talks about is this splitting when it happens on such a mass scale. she talks about people being left behind, and the Bible talks about this as well. So my understanding from the books and from subsequent channelings post the death of Dolores Cannon is that those of us who stay behind will have no recollection of the people that have left, and those that have left won't have recollection of the people that were left behind. And the people that are left behind, it's not as a punishment, it's just that they, like a school system, you need to go through the different levels before you can graduate, and it means that there's still lessons to be learned. So how do we make that shift into the 5D? So Dolores talks about the most important thing being forgiveness and release of karma. So the baggage that we hold on to is what creates dis-ease. That's what she would say. So to really practice forgiveness for every aspect of within yourself and for everybody around you. And this is not easy, but it's really important. So in terms of the forgiveness within yourself, to do shadow work. The forgiveness to do with other people, one really powerful way is to do a visualization with the contracts that we made, which I mentioned earlier. So we have contracts with certain people in our lives, and I'm sure if all of us really think about it, we know straight away who our contracts are with. Who are your biggest teachers? Who are the people that are causing you the most triggers? I did a visualization a few years ago after having a regression myself. Actually, I did a visualization with someone in my life, and I was told to visualize tearing up that contract and throwing it on the ground or burning it, and to visualize that person standing in front of me and just saying, we tried, thank you for all the experiences, but this ends now and we move in different directions. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to not speak to that person again, particularly if that person is family. But that was very powerful for me, actually. And over the following few years, I definitely realized that I was triggered less and less and less by that person. The other thing that's really important is to forgive the dark energies and any agendas that you observe at the moment going on in our world. It's really important to be able to see that for what it is. For me, darkness and evil is just unconsciousness, and we need to be able to do shadow work for the events going on around us as much as we do for the people around us, because we create our own realities. So if there are already some people living in 5D, it means that they've been able to see what's going on for what it is and not let it affect them, and we all have that capacity inside of us. So to do the work within ourselves, and then to connect and reach out to other people that are on our same path, is really important. And this is the way that we heal Earth. But the intention isn't even necessarily to heal Earth, it's really just to start and focus on ourselves. Because some people will never be converted in our lifetime. And that's their path, actually. They don't need to be converted. That's their truth at the moment. And it's the people that are kind of in the middle on the fence, but open to hearing another perspective, who we can answer questions. So the important thing is that to realize that because our words create spells, they're magic, if we put out there that we have hope for the future, this creates something out there, this energy. And we can either feed that, or we can weaken that by then noticing all the bad stuff that's going on, and what the government are now doing, and what the news is now saying, or what this person is now saying. This is such an easy trap to fall into, but every time we have those negative thoughts, it weakens that original positive energy that we put out there. So it's really important to feed that. And this might sound like a spiritual airy-fairy jargon, but when we notice those negative thoughts coming up, to replace them with a few positive ones instead, so that we make sure that we reinforce that positive hope for the future that we have. A lot of the first and second wave volunteers particularly have this feeling, have always had this feeling that we don't belong. And when we've got this, when we hold this belief, we're in resistance to our experience as a human being at the moment. And this is actually blocking a lot of first and second wavers from moving forward into the 5D. Another way to help move forward is through our diets. So as we lift and become lighter beings, our diets can help to reflect that. So to eat lighter foods, which means fruit, vegetables, grains, unprocessed, no sugar. Move forward into 5D, we will need to eat even lighter and lighter, and eventually we won't need to actually even eat food. This is what the book says, because later down the line we are going to be light beings. So the final thing I'd like to say about this book is that it gave me so much hope. Dolores Cannon said something in there, which was that the critical mass has now been reached and we have already won, meaning that the number of new pure souls has reached a point where the balance is tipped, and we are on a really positive timeline. And this not just from Dolores Cannon, but from other videos that I watch about what's going on at the moment from the truth-seeking communities and also the spiritual channeling communities, is that we are on a really positive timeline. We shouldn't be complacent and sit on our laurels, but to hold that resonance of hope in going forward into the future is really important, because we've got this, and everything is going to be okay. So I hope that this video can provide the hope and positivity that I took from it when I read it. In terms of the details about exactly what will happen and how it will happen, for me it's a perspective in terms of the splitting and people being left behind. I don't necessarily know if I visualize it happening like that. I don't know. I don't know that we'll ever know, because if what she says is true, we won't have a memory of it either way. But I feel within myself intuitively that something very positive is coming. It's happening already, and there is so much hope for the future. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. So which ones are your favourite ones? Do you know the name of that one?
Amethyst?
That's right, it was amethyst. Do you remember when you, the first time you got into crystals? Can I tell you this story of what happened? I think you're about 3 years old, and I had you in my arms and I had a necklace on, and it was tourmaline. It's the same as this one, tourmaline black necklace. And you picked up the crystal and you said, "This is special, Auntie Laura, isn't it?" And I said, "Yeah, it is." And you said, "It looks after you, doesn't it?" And I said, "Yeah, it does, it protects me." You don't remember that, do you? Because that was a few years ago now. But that was really special because I never told you about that before.
Yeah.
And that was the first crystal that you saw. And then I bought you an amethyst.
Yeah, Anna.
And how many crystals do you have now at home?
I'm not sure. 23.
We're in the forest and we're tired. What can we do?
Use a tree and ask it if we can borrow all its energy.
All of its energy? That's a lot. And then what if it says yes? What do we do then?
Take it, of course.
How do we do that?
Say please.
Say please, and then we touch the tree. How does it give you the energy? What does it feel like?
It feels like tickles.
Yeah?
Yeah, tickles. Now what happens when I do it? It feels tickly.